Hey guys, so today I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to show all of my builds that I use for Teralyst hunting. That would be Harrow, Trinity, Chroma, and Volt are the frames I use. And then also there's some gear that I use on everyone. I guess I'll go through that first since everyone's going to use it. So you want to have Archwing launchers. Pretty much every time you need to travel more than about 100 meters, you want to use an Archwing launcher. Um, the next thing you might want is ammo plates. Some people run out of ammo. It's pretty rare because most people are using sniper rifles, so these are super optional, but I've had people ask for them before. The other thing is energy plates. People do run out of energy a lot, especially if Harrow doesn't block the magnetic proc, then everyone will run out of energy. So it's nice to have energy restorers to get people's energy back, especially Trinity needs it to keep the lures alive. And the last one is the Ancient Healer Spectre. This will help your team stay alive, and it'll also really help your lures stay alive if your Trinity isn't up to snuff or if they happen to disconnect. Then this can really help save the game. You don't really need to use this every round, but it's really nice to have them for an emergency if your lures are dying. Okay, and then I'll go over my Lanka build because this is going to be the same for every every weapon. Oh, I guess that was the same thing. It's radiation, even though it's yeah. The title's wrong, but yeah, it's radiation. So you want radiation for sure on whatever sniper rifle you're using. 100 munitions doesn't do anything, so that's not the right build. This is the right build. So you put in vigilante armaments. Lanka needs Violet Acceleration, but if you're using a different sniper rifle, then you don't need Violet Acceleration here, and you can put on Fast Hands. Usually the only other snipers I use would definitely use Fast Hands here, so it's really up to you what you put in this last slot. But you definitely want 90% elementals for the most damage. Multi-shot will be really nice. And just because it's vigilante armaments, sometimes you'll get that enhanced crit, which is really nice. And then the other thing you could do is swap out Vigilante Fervor here for Violet Acceleration if you want a little bit more chance for those enhanced crits. I think that lowers the DPS, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Yeah, and then it really doesn't matter what your secondary is. You kind of just want to use something that's quick to clear lures, or if you go down, you can still do some damage. This is just my strongest weapon, so I would use the radiation build, of course. I happen to have Riven on here, but if you don't have Riven, you just have Augur Pact. But really, it's just whatever secondary has your highest damage without relying on things like status. Just you want base damage. Because yeah, the Eidolons can't be affected by status. And then here's my Sarpa build. All you need is Shattering Impact and a little bit of attack speed. The purpose of this is to reduce the Eidolon's armor, but you want to pay attention to how many shots it takes to reduce its armor with each number of corrosive projections, because you don't want to reduce its armor past 0. You want it to still have a little armor, because then the Eidolons will still take 75% bonus damage. This is kind of more for solo play. I usually don't do this to the Eidolons in group play because I don't know how many corrosive projections there are or how many people have done this. Maybe you could shoot like one shot of a gunblade into it or whatever, but yeah, it's really not necessary. You could just have whatever you want here. And then so here's my Harrow build. With Harrow, you want your duration to be around 100. Any shorter, it might be too short. You won't be able to nullify the entire magnetic proc. And if it's any longer and your team is really fast, then sometimes you'll still be in the crit portion of your fourth ability and not the invulnerability portion of it, and you won't be able to use it again unless you jump in the water to make it go away. But anyways, so when you're using Harrow, one trick is you go up to the Eidolon after he's down on his knees because you just popped his limb. He gets down on his knees and then his head stays still, and then his head will dip a second and then he'll lift it up, and right when he dips his head, that's when you use your fourth ability to nullify the damage. That way you can get the timing right. So I just watch the Eidolon's head. Once he dips it, then I use it, and then yeah. And then corrosive projection or Deadeye is best here. You don't want more than 3 corrosive projections, so I usually try to have Deadeye if I can, if I have the choice between the two. Okay, so next person is Trinity. So Trinity, you basically just want a really efficient Bless build, so you don't need range because Bless is global, or is based on your affinity range. You just want duration and efficiency, so you can use it as much as you want, and then you need at least 45% power strength to get the full 75% damage reduction. And then I also like having redirection. You could also have vitality here. I would really not recommend using quick thinking because you don't want to be out of energy and not be able to bless. But redirection or vitality is fine. The best one is primed vigor if you have it, but not a lot of people have that. Yeah, and then I use arcane momentum for my sniper, so I can just reload quicker. Reloading can like lower your DPS pretty significantly depending on which sniper you're using, so I like using arcane momentums. Arcane nullifier can be good if you have 2 of them. So see, it has 60% magnetic damage. So say you have 2 of them totaling to 100% chance to resist magnetic, then at that point you don't have to worry about the magnetic proc that happens when a limb breaks. So if you don't have a Harrow, or if your Harrow disconnects, then you'll be safe from that. But unless you have 2 arcane nullifiers, it's not really worth having them at all, so I just put in arcane momentums for both of these. I actually just got my other arcane momentum, so I'll put that on. But yeah, so that's Trinity. Yeah, and you basically just want to bless pretty much every time it's down. Just keep bless up the whole time. Don't worry about losing a tiny bit of DPS when you're switching back to Trinity to use your bless again. Just use your bless a lot. Okay, and then here's my Bolt build. For this, you really just need duration, efficiency, and strength. Range is nice because it makes your shields bigger, but it makes them like hardly bigger at all. So it's not really necessary. If you just toss up 2 shields, then that's probably better. You can sacrifice, if anything, you want to sacrifice duration for range, but don't sacrifice your efficiency. You want to be able to put up shields, and sacrificing your strength you could. You mainly want your shield for the crit bonus that it gives. You don't really care about the extra electricity damage because it's not really that much. But yeah, and then I always have vitality redirection on Bolt because, I don't know, I mean, if a Trinity is good, they should keep you alive, but sometimes the Trinity starts going down and it kind of cascades. So I like having the survivability mods. Okay, so last but not least, Chroma. So Chroma has some different secondaries. I'll go over his build first. It's basically just the standard Chroma build. If I had more Forma, I would replace this for Intensify, and I would put Power Drift. Is that what it's called? Yeah, Power Drift I'd put in the X-List slot, but I need to farm it more. Again, I have Deadeye because I have the choice between Deadeye or Corrosive Projection. And then Arcane Momentums. Vitality and Steel Fiber. I would keep Vitality, but you can switch out Steel Fiber for Redirection if you want, or more Strength or Duration if you want also. It depends on how you play Chroma. When I play Chroma, what I try to do is use his 3rd ability every 30 seconds so that it never goes off cooldown and I don't have to re-damage myself. So re-damaging yourself takes time and it lowers the DPS a lot. Like, especially when you have to re-damage yourself for every single limb, it really starts to add up. So Steel Fiber will make you damage yourself slower. So you could put on Redirection here instead if you want to more easily damage yourself. You could also just put on Strength if you want to just be stronger. But yeah, so then here's my Spyro Prime build. The only thing you really need is... Oh wait, this isn't the right build. Concealed Explosives is what you want here. These do a flat amount of damage, so all of your other mods, except for fire rate, so yeah, so this is not the right build. This should be a fire rate mod, or this should be a fire rate mod. You just want fire rate mods and concealed explosives. So realistically, the build should be like something like this. And then conceal explosives. So yeah, you can use this, throw them at the ground, and you can damage yourself with your Vex armor up. The other thing you can use is the Serrata. I think this is much easier to use, so this is usually what I use. This is the build you want. You want just only toxin damage, and then you need power throw and quick return. Between these two mods, it'll make it so that when you throw your melee, it'll bounce around and then bounce back to you and damage you right when it gets to the end of its like duration, or I don't know exactly how it works. But you basically just want to look down at your feet, throw your melee, and then it'll bounce and damage you. And this is another way you can self-damage as Chroma to get your Fury buff up. The other option besides Serrata that I like to use is the Halakar. This is because it does blast damage, and so it explodes on contact. So when you use this, as opposed to the Serrata, it explodes right away when it hits your feet, and you don't have to wait for it to bounce around. The only downside is since it does blast damage, it hits your shield too, and it has IPS, so it hits your shield. So it makes you a little less tanky, and it's a little less efficient of damage onto your health, but it's not really that big of a deal. So Halakar is another pretty good option for Chroma. And then with all of my frames, I take Carrier Prime. I used to take Kavats, but I've just kind of found that they die more often than they should, and I don't like my teammates wasting time reviving my Kavats, so that's why I started using Carrier Prime. You get a little bit of crit bonus from the Darza Kavat, but it did get nerfed, and I just don't think it's worth it having people trying to revive your Kavat all the time. Usually when you have a Chrome and a Volt, the limbs go down fast enough anyways, and the main thing you need to worry about is the shield and then just staying alive. So yeah, I definitely recommend using a Sentinel instead. And then the last build I'm going to show you is for solo Teralysts. This one is basically straight from Brozyme. He has a video on solo Teralysts, but I like using Oberon. I'll show you the build first and kind of explain what you do. So basically you just want a bunch of strength, and you need both of these mods. You don't need to have rage also, but it's really nice to have both. So you're just going to use your third ability, and this is going to keep the lures alive. And the more strength you have, the more health you get back. Like when your 3 is out, it gives more health if you have more strength. And then you want to have Arcane Nullifier, like I talked about earlier. You want to get this to 100% so that you can avoid the magnetic procs. But if you don't get it to 100%, what you can do is you can just use your second ability, Hollowed Ground. What this does is it creates a zone on the ground, and if you stand in that zone, you are immune to any status procs. So what you can do is you put your hollowed ground down, stand on it, and then when the magnetic proc is about to happen after you pop the limb, you just pop into your operator, go into void mode, and Oberon will stay on your hollowed ground, and he won't lose all his energy from the magnetic proc, and he also won't die from it. So you can just quickly use a hollowed ground right before the limb breaks, stand on it. You can't really do this for your whole team because they probably won't know, but again, this is a solo build, so that's how you do it solo with Oberon. Same build for the Lanka. The Sarpa is kind of more important on this one because since it's just you can get really down to exactly how much shots you need to get the armor to not break, to get close to breaking but not breaking. So you want a little bit of armor, but you don't want the armor all the way gone. And you can really dial in if you're doing it solo. And then, yeah, I probably shouldn't have a Kavat here. I'm not really sure if a Kavat or Sentinel is better in solo, because it's just one other thing to revive. If you have an Adarza Kavat, that's probably the best. But a Smita Kavat works alright too. But yeah, I think that's really all there is to talk about the Teralyst fights. Yeah, the other thing to mention is you really don't need to grab all of those smaller, what are they called? The things the Von Bliss drop. You don't really need to grab them all because you're going to get so many over time, and you mainly just need the Radiant Shards and stuff. The other thing that's that's important to note, especially if you're doing it solo, is that the Vomblists are what kill the lures. The Eidolon, or the Teralyst, doesn't really do any damage to the lures, so as long as you kill the Vomblist quick enough, then you can keep the lures alive solo. What I like for this is using the 2-3-3 amp, so that your secondary fire is the one that locks onto people. If it locks onto the Vomblist, it makes it so you don't actually have to find them. There's like a lot of visual effects going around and stuff like that. But yeah, so I think that's probably enough for this video. I made it kind of long, kind of droned on. But anyways, thanks for watching and have a good day.